Hey, Rhonda here. Thanks for joining me for this week's Weltrio Minute. We're going to talk about the critical balance between blood sugar and its impact on health. I want to talk a little bit about homeostasis. Homeostasis is this fancy word that we use to say the body wants to maintain numbers within a very narrow margin. Consider the body temperature, the pH of your blood, so how acidic or basic it is, blood pressure, sodium-potassium balance, and blood glucose. All of these, among others, are things that the body has to maintain within a very narrow margin. These are the things that the doctor's checking when he checks your blood at your annual physical. Are those things that need to maintain a very narrow margins where they're supposed to be, or is something going on and you're sick? So, body temperature. Our body temperature, the homeostasis sweet spot, is 98.6. At 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, our body is where it wants to be. Now, if we get a little hot, our body sweats and cools us back down. And if we get a little cold, our body shivers and it warms us back up. And there's some flexibility there. And as long as we have the ability to return to homeostasis, we're doing okay. Now, if our body gets a little hot and we can't get it back to 98.6, or our body gets a little cold and we can't get it back up to 98.6, then there's something wrong. We're sick. And if it gets up there too high, it'll kill us. And if it gets too low, it'll kill us. So it's super important that we maintain that 98.6. Now, over time, think of like grandma is always cold. What's going on? She doesn't have that flexibility. There's not as many hormones running around. There's just less ability for her to maintain that 98.6. And there's actually less ability for her to cool off because she's lost some of that flexibility. And I want to consider how blood glucose is similar. So I'm going to use this little object lesson. This is 1 liter, a 1 liter bottle of water. Now let's just consider that it's 1 liter of blood. The normal person has about 5 liters of blood. So in 1 liter of blood, if you have a normal fasting blood glucose in that ideal homeostatic range, which is that 98.6 sweet spot for temperature, the normal sweet spot for blood glucose is about 80 milligrams per deciliter. And how much sugar is in this 1 liter of blood if you have that blood glucose of 80? It's a little less than 1 Tic Tac worth of sugar in 1 liter of blood. So a little less, so that when you have 5 liters of blood, a ideal blood glucose is 80 milligrams per deciliter, which means in 5 liters of blood you're going to have 4 grams of glucose. So what's the difference between 80 and 100? Where 101 is pre-diabetic and the doctor's going, maybe there's something wrong. That is an additional gram of sugar, 1 Tic Tac. So between 80 and 100 is 1 gram of sugar. And the difference between 100, which is pre-diabetic, and 120, which is creeping up to diabetic, is 1 gram of sugar. Now we could do the math and show you how that works, but it's really boring. Just know that there are 6 grams of sugar in a diabetic's blood and 4 grams of sugar in that homeostatic perfect sweet spot of 80 milligrams per deciliter. Your body can't figure out how to get rid of 2 grams of sugar. You're sick. Just like if your body can't figure out how to get back to 98.6, you're sick. So why? Why do we get sick? What's happening? How does that happen? In this 1 liter, let's now consider that this is our favorite drink. Let's consider that this is Coke. Coca-Cola, and there's 1 liter of Coca-Cola here. How many grams of sugar is in 1 liter of Coca-Cola? Well, let me just put this around here. 110 grams. Holy cow. 110 grams of sugar in 33.8 ounces of Coca-Cola. That's like more than 3.5 grams per ounce. That is crazy when you consider that your body only wants 1. There's 110 times more sugar than your body needs. And this is going to stress the body out. Your body's going to have to do somersaults to get this back down to that ideal. And it does. Like when we are young and metabolically flexible, our body figures out what to do with all of this. And it's tough because there's no fiber in this to slow it down. It's going to hit our bloodstream fast. About half of it's going to go to the liver and be turned into as fat because it's less toxic. And the other stuff is going to be taken up as quickly as it can into the cells because excess sugar in the blood causes damage. It's abrasive. It scratches up the arteries. It causes nerve damage. So your hands, your feet, your eyes, your kidneys, those tiny little vessels get damaged by this abrasive sugar running through it. And it impacts your immunity and it impacts your brain and your ability to think. So we want to keep this out. And your body, when it's young and flexible, can get it out. But when we do this too much for too long, our body becomes slower at getting it out. And instead of being able to get this out of the blood in about 2 hours, it takes like 3 or 4, and then your fasting blood sugar creeps up to 82, 85, 90, 95. And you can see it happening over time. You can see it coming. And that's sick. Like, you need to stop treating your body this way and asking it to get rid of all of this glucose by taking something in that doesn't have fiber to slow it down and that stresses your body out so much. So in this week's newsletter, read it. A lot of really good information. I want you to consider, look at the labels of the food you're eating. Consider how much sugar is in it and decide if you want to do that to your body. Because if you do it too often, too long, your body won't be able to compensate anymore and you'll become sick. And remember that just that 1 extra gram of sugar makes all the difference.